My name's Petri Pennanen, and welcome to this workshop now on mindfulness in adult education, which I'm very pleased to do here remotely. I'm sitting in Helsinki, and very pleased that we can do it this time digitally here. I thought we would actually, before we jump into the subject, do a little experiment. And this experiment would involve sort of fully arriving to whatever you are starting, whatever you're doing. As you know, very often when we come somewhere, our body comes. Well, even that is now only virtually here. But let's maybe do an experiment what happens when we let the body and mind to fully arrive. And it's going to be a very, very brief exercise. So why don't you just find a comfortable position on your chair. If you want, you can close your eyes. It's not mandatory. You can also keep your eyes open. And in that case, maybe focus your attention somewhere close, maybe not on the screen, but somewhere close in your vicinity on one point, whatever it is. And just finding a comfortable position, maybe feeling the soles, maybe your buttocks on the chair, whether you're leaning to your chair, what's the back, finding a comfortable position for your head on the shoulders, maybe turning the head a little bit around, rotating, and letting it find a good position where it's easy, effortless to keep it upright. And then when you found a comfortable position, maybe you want to shift your attention to the breath, just noting the breath. The in-breath, where it starts, where it ends, and the out-breath, it starts. Can you actually follow it to the very end? No need to change anything, just observing. How's the breath right now? And then if you care to, moving your attention to your body. Sensing into the body, just bringing in curiosity. What's in the body right now? Maybe tension, itching, cold, warm, whatever. Just noting, how are you arriving? And soon enough, your mind will start wandering, gets back into thought, into the past, into the future, what happened in the previous session, what's going to happen during the day afterwards. And just noting what's in your mind. And letting go as much as is possible. And returning back to your body, this moment. And if your mind is very busy, you need to return every few seconds, and that's fine. Then you just note the mind is busy. And finally, if you want to, you can ask yourself, just raise this question. What is my intention for this session? I joined this session. Why did I join? What would make it a success for me? What do I want to remind myself of? And when the first answers come up, maybe asking yourself, what would be a suitable intention? Really, really a good intention. And then slowly bringing this little moment of arrival to the end. If you closed your eyes, maybe opening your eyes and focusing in on this session, this presentation. So welcome all. Maybe sensing into your body also what changed, maybe just for yourself. When we started it, when you arrived, and now when you're here, what changed? And this is maybe the first one you can take. It's been used actually very widely nowadays, even in workplaces, corporations, but I think it kind of suits well also in education when you start a new session. Also when people come into a class, just, fully arriving, bringing yourself fully into the place and even having an intention. Now, whether it's meetings, whether it's individual, you can do it in groups, you can do it alone. You can do it stealth, like they say, that nobody even sees that you're doing it, but just bringing yourself totally into whatever you're starting. And then I wanted to give a few sort of information. Who's here? Who am I? Where am I coming from? So I'm here from the company Center for Mindfulness Finland, which was founded already almost 20 years ago when my wife, Lena Pennanen, was introduced to the first Mindfulness MBSR teacher course in Europe by John Kabat-Zinn, Saki Santorelli at that time in Germany. And once she had kind of trained, she actually brought this method, which was totally unknown, into Finland. So nobody had even heard the name. There was maybe one article somewhere in that she discovered with the name mindfulness on it. And so Lena had to kind of invent the vocabulary even into Finland. And from right the start, as she was working with John Kabat-Zinn, she was actually in good cooperation with, at that time, the Mindfulness Center at the University of Massachusetts. That knowledge and team has actually shifted a few years ago into Brown Mindfulness Center. So we're now a cooperation partner of Brown. And we do also Search Inside Yourself, more for workplaces, and recently introduced GENOS emotional intelligence assessment tools coming from Australia. And we use the mindfulness app out of Stockholm, which is one of the leading next to Calm, Headspace, and so forth for really training. So I guess worthwhile noting that we are not really inventing our trainings ourselves. We use the curricula in MBSR from Brown, which dates back to John Kabat-Zinn, and then the other institutions and their trainings. That's basically what we do. We are exclusively focused only on mindfulness and emotional intelligence programs, doing it for private people and also for workplaces, companies, and also extensive teacher training. And then before we jump into the next one, I actually wanted to do a little poll. So let's maybe see. And this poll would just gauge a little bit how much you know about mindfulness so far. So let me launch it, and if you would tick, you can tick multiple answers, and you can just tick one. But let's see if you would care to just answer to it, so we know a little bit what the level of experience is here. Okay, yes. All right, so, okay, now I understand everybody's voted, so here's the results. So most of you actually have read about it. That's good. And then 2 have attended a course, 3 actually also practice, and 1 person even regularly. So a quite typical picture these days, actually. I know this from Finland as well. There is very few people who have never heard about mindfulness, but sort of the level of how much regular practice there is, that tends to be a little bit less. So I think thanks for giving that. That gives me also a little bit of a feeling on where we are. So I wanted to start, which I felt really was interesting in the topic of education, looking really at the top workplace skills that come from Davos, the World Economic Forum, and then relating those actually also to mindfulness. And I ticked, this is really my judgment, I ticked the kind of skills that I felt where mindfulness could help, and was quite pleased to see that there is about half of the skills that are considered really critical for the next 5 years in workplaces. You can actually have some level of impact, and there is a varying level of research backing this up, but I haven't really gone through. This is really more my sort of out of my personal experience and the knowledge I have. But you see active learning very top, so I think we are here in good company about and on important subjects. Then a little tour into the background of mindfulness, especially MBSR. That stands for mindfulness-based stress reduction. And this is a course that was developed by John Kabat-Zinn, who's here in the picture in the center. His wife is actually on the left and my wife is on the right side, as John was also invited by us into Finland a few times. And John is probably the person that is, among others, credited with bringing mindfulness, bringing meditation into the West. And I always say he kind of had two very important ideas. One was really that mindfulness, the meditation as such, works and has an impact on our health and well-being without the whole sort of background of the Buddhism and all of that. These are really like you can train your mind. That was number one, which I felt was very important. And the second one was really that unless we start studying and doing research, it will never really get a big thing. And so he entered, he's actually a microbiologist from MIT, was in a Nobel laureate's laboratory, left that, and went into the University of Massachusetts, into the medical school, and started there his Center for Mindfulness, very, very small. I've seen some pictures where he and his colleague Saki Santorelli are really lying on their back meditating, and they fill the whole room, and their legs are under the little table there and so forth. So that's where it all started, sort of 40 years ago, and it's grown, as you know, to become something really important in society. And the way John defines mindfulness is really paying attention on purpose in the present moment and non-judgmentally. And maybe the non-judgmentally is the most challenging piece of it, because obviously if you're paying attention to the present moment, especially your inner weather system, there could be some difficult emotions sometimes, difficult moments, and still being non-judgmental, accepting, open. That's generally what is the challenge very much in this. But once you start mastering it, it obviously helps you in your everyday life also with those moments to really be with them, accept them, and just sense into them. And it should be said maybe that there is all sorts of mindfulness, but the mindfulness method that's most research on is really the MBSR curriculum by John Kabat-Zinn. If you look at mindfulness research, then you will most often find that it's an 8-week course, and it's exactly the curriculum of John Kabat-Zinn, or it's somehow slightly adapted, maybe a little bit shorter sessions or whatever they felt necessary. But the basis of the mindfulness research and really the results is most often the mindfulness MBSR 8-week course. Then there is, of course, MBCT, which was derived in the UK out of MBSR, more for depression patients. And they are very similar. It's just a variation kind of from MBSR, which is kind of developed into a certain direction. So there might be all sorts of mindfulness trainings, and which may work or not, and there is maybe less research on those. But if you want to sort of go for the sort of the type of mindfulness that has been where the whole research is based on, then you'd go for an MBSR course. That's a safe choice, I'd say. And then maybe a comment on what is mindfulness not. So I said it's really taken out the whole sort of ethical, the kind of worldview, the religion piece has been taken more to the background. It's not really a technique to clear away thoughts. Like where we started, I guided you that there are thoughts in the mind. That's normal. And we just see that our mind is busy, maybe let the thoughts be, if possible, and return whenever we need. It's not really a relaxation technique either. People do relax, stress goes down, but that's more effect than a goal. And especially it's not really a training in deep breathing. Although we focus on the breath, but the focus on the breath, it's just the one point to focus on. It really stands for whatever you're working on, whether you're discussing, whether you're eating, whether you're walking. I mean, if you train by bringing your attention to the breath, then that same skill applies to everything you start doing in your everyday work. And it's not really to eliminate stress. It's maybe to become aware of stress, more to develop a different relationship to the stress. It's always said that mindfulness is a very relational practice. How are you in relation with all the stressors that we inevitably have in our life? But it's not really to eliminate them. And I mentioned a couple of times research. So this is just one statistic that's circulating around. There is about 1,000 studies each year these days. So if you take about a good 200 work days in a year, then it's about sort of 5 studies a day. So it's really tough to follow all of it at these days anymore. But it's gets sort of more and more, and the quality gets better. So there is always a little caveat that it's still a young science, and especially in the early days, there was always a comment that the level and the quality of the science is still questionable. It's getting better. The measurements are getting more objective. The sample sizes are getting bigger, and so forth. So and there is random control tests and all that. But there's still a long way to go. But obviously, even the numbers show that there is a lot of excitement, there is a lot of interest, and I think scientists feel there is really something in there, so it's worth really investing their energy and focus and money to go after this. And what is really science looking at? And the basis really is a notion called neuroplasticity, which you as educators, I'm sure you know the concept, but that's also based in mindfulness. You are really literally training your brain, whether it's certain brain areas that have to do with focus, that have to do with interoception, and the neural paths between them. There's a good saying that what fires together, wires together. So if you really train one sort of nerve connection all the time, it just gets stronger. So therefore, you know, feeling into the body, developing your attention, you can just train it. It's like going to the gym or going to just run. But obviously here you're training other parts of your body, and therefore just the exercise is a bit different. That's how I like to compare it. And then I wanted to look at also preparing for this. So looked at different science and different studies on really what is now maybe relevant for adult educators. And I was quite impressed on the level and the amount of studies that are. Obviously, much is also mindfulness at schools. But here's really what I found, and a good source for really looking deeper into this would be the Mindfulness Initiative. And they've just brought this year out a big study on bringing mindfulness to schools. And they go through all the benefits that research indicates that are for educators. And really, it starts with the physical and mental well-being at the bottom, but it goes also to better class organization, whether it's focus, attention, clarity, priority, staying on the task, making the sessions more engaging. And then, of course, sort of the supportive learning environment, really that there is compassion, there is empathy, there is a calm, understanding, positive learning environment. So that obviously is very critical for learning overall. So I felt this was quite an impressive list. And just a sec, I'm here. And then looking on the other side of the coin for the learners. So it starts obviously also with very much the physical well-being. It starts with the sort of mental well-being, but even on academic performance, cognition, learning, sort of self-regulation, content mastery, you find positive results, not to speak about social and emotional skills like resilience, self-esteem, empathy, self-compassion in this case, kindness to yourself. And especially in adult learning, I think these can be very important things, as sometimes really for adults it may be tough to start learning again. So really it is, science indicates that doing mindfulness trainings can really support it. So therefore bringing it into your also teaching, whatever you teach, may be also supportive for your students. Next one I wanted to share was really the level of stress, as we all tend to sort of rush from one session to the other, especially now in the pandemic times where we are very much on Zoom or on Teams or whatever it is. So here's a study from Microsoft, which they did in their environment, where they had a group of people, they put some EEG caps on their heads, started measuring their brains, and the group did on one Monday 4 sessions, half an hour without breaks, just jumping from one team session to the next one without any breaks, and they monitored the brains. And what happens here is really on the top side, you start seeing beta waves, which are correlating to stress in the brain. And the more red it gets, the more hot it gets, the more stress there is. So you start seeing stress starts accumulating up here. And then next Monday, same people, they did another try where they had 10-minute meditation breaks between the sessions. And as you see, the brains really stayed fully cool. The beta waves are on the same level throughout the whole 2 hours. And the conclusion really was that, you know, if you do sort of 10-minute meditation breaks, it could be, though, to be fair, something else as well. If it's a walk or whatever, you just really stop working for a moment. You don't take the 6 calls between the sessions or something else. You literally do nothing or whatever it is to calm down your mind. That helps hugely. And think about the learning environment. I mean, if your sort of stress starts accumulating up, how could anybody learn, or actually for that matter, teach appropriately anymore? So I felt this was an interesting study to look at for really the effect on really the learning and your brain. And actually it reduces also engagement. So that was one other measure they had in the study, that if the stress starts building up, the participants or the teachers start also being less engaged. Second study I wanted to show you was literally on done in Harvard, where Matt Killingsworth studied. He had an app and thousands of people participating. How much of the day are you really present in what you're doing? And anybody's guess. Sometimes people sort of guess that it's 80% absent and 20% there. But actually the study was that about half of the time people are present in what they're doing, whether it's studying, whether it's following somebody who's speaking, or whether it's actually the educator himself. And here's some really criteria, sort of characteristics. If you're absent, you're inward focused, you're lost, you're an autopilot. It's not really the best learning environment, for that matter, also the best educator situation. And then look on the right side, if you are present, how that kind of changes the situation. So I think the message here is really to train your ability to focus on whatever you're doing is really critical. And then you can sort of increase the percentage for yourself and your learners by just very simple attention trainings. Going on, as you saw on the benefits, there were also a few benefits that were listed on the emotional side, really the connection and reactivity, being engaged with others. So here's a study that comes actually out of Finland. Lauri Nummenmaa, he studied where do emotions show up in the body. And actually, interestingly enough, he found out that across the world, across cultures, the emotions show up in pretty much the same places. And if you take happiness, so that seems to be in the breast, in the head area. If you take anger, it starts going down to the fists. If you take love, then it goes already to the belt area, so to speak. Pride seems to be very much in the chest and head only. So I felt this was really interesting and very intuitive. I think everybody can relate to this. And we've had to have it here more just to show that the emotions really do show up as physical sensations in the body. And these sensations actually do provide us data on how we're doing, what's going on. And you can train this. And so we actually say that you can develop through training sort of high resolution self-awareness. And the first picture is really what we normally have. We have a sense that there is something in my body, there is tension, there is happiness, there is sadness, or whatever it is. And if you start training the, so to speak, interoception skill, then it actually can become much more nuanced, much more detailed, much more sensitive. So you can develop a high resolution self-awareness. And that's where I wanted to jump into an exercise, which I wanted to do with you, which is called the body scan. So if you find a comfortable position again, just being sitting, you can also lay down. It's very often done also on the back. And if you feel a bit tired, you could actually stand up. Closing again your eyes if you care to, or focusing your gaze somewhere close to, in some places, so it's not wandering around. And just finding a good, comfortable position where you can sit for a moment. Alert, maybe also expressing some self-dignity. And bring your attention to the soles of your feet, feeling how they are resting on the ground, your buttocks, how you're sitting in the chair. Where do your hands find their place? And then bring your attention again to the breath for a short moment. Just feeling into the breath, how the fresh air flows into your body. Maybe the belly expands a bit. And the air flowing out of the body, belly, chest area contracting. And whenever you feel ready, bring your attention to your feet, the toes, the soles, and just sensing into the feet, whatever you sense there, whether it's itching, whether it's coolness or hot heat or moisture, the feet touching the ground. And if you're feeling nothing in your feet at this stage, that's fully okay. The intention is not to create any feelings, force any feelings, rather just noting what's here and now. And if it's nothing, then it's nothing. And then let your attention move to your ankles, from the ankles through the chins to your knees, from your knees through the thighs, up to the pelvis area. Whatever you sense at this moment in your feet. And at some point, you will discover that your mind wanders. And when you discover that your attention is not in your feet anymore, but somewhere totally else, that's fully fine. A healthy mind starts wandering, goes into thought, the past, the future. And whenever you notice, then that's the opportunity to return back, to take control of your attention again and bring it back to your feet, to your body this moment. So it's not a mistake, failure, when the mind starts wandering. That's what minds do. But rather an opportunity to train the muscle of attention and bring back your attention. And then let your attention shift gradually upwards to your belly area, to your lower back. The belly area where there's often very much tension, or just the movement, feeling, sensing the breath. No need to change anything, just observing what's in your body right now. And then letting your attention shift upwards to your chest area, upper back. Again, sensing maybe the breath in the breast area. Or indeed, even your heartbeat. And whatever you're feeling right now, just noting it, whether it's pleasant, unpleasant, or just nothing, being with it. No need to change or achieve anything. Just noting what's here right now. And then let your attention shift over to your hands. Just noting your fingers, inside of your hands, outside, your arms, and then letting your attention move to your head, maybe feeling your cheek, all the little muscles that are creating facial expressions, communicating with the world. Just letting them relax for a moment, letting go of all tension. And the nose area, maybe feeling the air going through your nostrils. And coming out again, maybe slightly warmer. And finally, let your attention move to the top of your head and from there to your breath. And taking a few deep in and out breaths, letting the breath flow through the whole body, from the top of your head, through your breast area, stomach, feet, all the way down to the soles of your feet. And with the out breath, just letting all tension kind of flow into your chair, into the ground, letting the body relax as much as is possible right now. Sensing the in-breath and out-breath and letting go. So coming to a finish with the body scan. And the body scan is really one exercise where you can train your, what we call the interoceptive skills, really sensing all the emotions, the feelings in your body, which is so critical, whether it's really for just feeling when you're exhausted, when you're tired, or it's really also to do with the sensing your emotions, also emotions of others. So this exercise has a lot to do with empathy as well. And finally, which I find very interesting, is also sort of, it has to do also with, some science indicates that it has to do even with decision making. But we are coming to a close, and I wanted to leave you also a little time for any questions you may have. So if you want to sort of learn more or train more, so you could download the mindfulness app that I mentioned early on. And we do also work together with the mindfulness school in Estonia, where we've done some mindfulness MBSR courses. Lena has been teaching there, and we've got some trainings going on. So if you want to sort of check their website, maybe for future trainings, then that's a good source to go. But I wanted to stop sharing maybe here and see whether you have still some questions as sort of time is coming soon to a close, and I wanted to be fairly punctual, so you may have some other plans. But any comments, sharings, questions you may still have? Experiences, observations, how were the exercises? What did you note or observe?
Can I share?
Yes, please.
Yes, well, it was interesting. I have never before used like mindfulness practice in a learning situation. So thank you for that. That was my first one. Yeah, it's interesting, and it would be interesting to see how these practices come into the practice of trainers and into the classroom. And I guess it should start in kindergarten.
It does,
with
yes.
these minutes of silence. Yeah, and I have teach this to my son as well, and it helped.
That's great. And I'm always saying, since the brain of the child is still so formable, so plastic, it's probably they need much less training to really get good at this. So much less practice hours.
But what is your like experience so far? So people who are grown-ups, adults, does it take, how long does it take? Does it take longer?
I do train regularly these 8 weeks, and when people do this body scan, actually it goes through the whole program, but it's really the main practice for 30 minutes 6 times a week for 3 weeks. So that's where people start seeing changes. They start becoming more sensitive. They start becoming more aware of the emotions. Unfortunately, of course, of the pleasant and unpleasant ones. So they come to class and say, it feels so difficult, and I'm feel my whatever it is. So this is not really working. And, you know, it's not always pleasant. But that's exactly it. When you start feeling how you like it, what's in your body. So I would say 2-3 weeks, if you do it regularly, you start seeing some change.
Just a continuing thought of that, do you think that it's more beneficial to study it in groups?
Absolutely. If I can share, actually, I needed to skip a few slides, but if you're just, you know, this is a lead in. So this is really how we see it, that you have your individual practice and you have groups. That's how it's been done thousands of years, isn't it? That you come into groups and share experience, and MBSR is really full of it. Every week, 2.5 hours, you come together. And then, of course, it's a validated method and a professional teacher, that it's not somebody who's just read the book, but has really years of practice himself and knows what this is about. So that's really, thanks for. And really to conclude, in our trainings, actually, I would say we have 2 groups of professions which stand out. One is healthcare, all sorts of doctors, psychiatrists, and psychologists. And the second one is actually educators, teachers, coaches, whatever. And there is so much work being done to bring mindfulness into schools. Like you say, that's really where it's helpful, I guess, both for teacher and for the student. And Harvard, actually Oxford are using it. So this is really just to support the learning.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
Anything else? I'm aware of time, so you may need to jump into whatever is next. So just let go of this one. Do the arrival practice before you start the next one. Take your 10 minutes so your brain doesn't really overheat. And then wish you a really great day if there is. But I'll be hanging in here for, you know, until the next session. So if somebody wants to still stay and ask something, then that's more than welcome. But I'm mindful of time as well. So thank you for everybody being here. It was great being with you, and hopefully you got some inspiration for the subject.
Thank you as well.
Thank you, Petri.
Thank you. Bye.
Yes, thank you very much.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Petri, one question. Can you show the books? What was in your slides?
Absolutely, yes. Yeah, you want to take a screenshot? Just
yes, please.
yeah, absolutely. Let me see what's here. Yes.
Thanks.
Did you get it?
Wait 1 second. Done.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Screenshot.
Yeah.
Done.
Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. That's it. That's good reading about the subject.
Thanks. Bye.
Yep. Bye.
Bye.